Have you ever picked up a ruler and noticed the small hole near one end? It seems like such an insignificant detail that most of us barely think about it. After all, the numbers and straight edge are what really matter, right? But if the hole serves no purpose, why has it appeared on rulers for generations? Is it just there to save a tiny bit of plastic, or does it have a much more practical story behind it? As it turns out, that little circle is the result of decades of design, manufacturing, and everyday problem solving. Today we will uncover the surprisingly useful history behind the tiny hole in your ruler, right here, on History of Simple Things. Long before rulers were made from colorful plastic, people measured things using sticks, cords, and carved pieces of wood. Some of the oldest known rulers date back nearly 4,000 years to ancient Egypt, where craftsmen used carefully marked measuring rods while building temples and monuments. Similar measuring tools appeared in ancient Rome, China, and Mesopotamia, each designed to help create structures with greater accuracy. These early rulers didn't have holes because they were valuable tools, often handmade from wood, ivory, or metal, and were usually stored carefully in boxes or workshops rather than carried around in classrooms. As measuring tools became more common during the Industrial Revolution, rulers transformed from handcrafted instruments into inexpensive mass-produced products. Factories began making rulers from wood, steel, aluminum, and eventually plastic. By the mid-20th century, millions of students around the world were carrying rulers in their backpacks every day. Unlike professional craftsmen, students weren't keeping their rulers in special toolboxes. They tossed them into desks, drawers, bags, and pencil cases where they were constantly getting lost or damaged. Manufacturers began thinking about simple ways to make rulers easier to store without adding extra cost. That's where the little hole comes in. Its most obvious purpose is surprisingly practical: hanging. A hole allows a ruler to be stored on a hook, pegboard, nail, or string instead of lying flat on a cluttered surface. In classrooms, teachers could hang dozens of rulers neatly on wall hooks, making them easy to organize and quick to distribute during lessons. In workshops, carpenters and engineers could keep measuring tools within easy reach, while preventing them from being buried under other equipment. It's one of those simple ideas that solves a problem almost effortlessly. The hole also makes manufacturing slightly easier. During production, especially with plastic rulers made through injection molding, the hole can help move, transport, or package the rulers on automated factory equipment. Some production lines temporarily hold or align rulers using pins that fit through the hole before they're packed. While this isn't the primary reason the hole exists, manufacturers quickly realized they could incorporate a useful storage feature without making production any more complicated. Some people have wondered whether the hole exists simply to save plastic. Technically, removing a tiny circle of material does reduce the amount of plastic used, but the savings are incredibly small. A single hole removes only a fraction of a gram of material. Across millions of rulers, manufacturers may save a modest amount of raw material, but this alone would never justify redesigning the product. The practical storage benefits are far more valuable than the tiny material savings. Over time, people discovered other creative uses for the hole that the original designers may never have imagined. Students often loop string through it to keep rulers attached to clipboards or binders. Artists sometimes hang rulers directly beside drafting tables for quick access. Teachers occasionally thread rings through several rulers to create classroom sets that stay together. Some crafters even use the hole to hang rulers as guides or templates in workshops. These weren't necessarily the reasons the hole was invented, but they show how a simple feature can become surprisingly versatile. Not every ruler has a hole, though. Precision metal rulers used in engineering or scientific laboratories sometimes leave it out because the entire edge needs to remain perfectly rigid and balanced. Some specialty rulers are designed for machine work, where even a small opening could interfere with specific measurements or manufacturing standards. Meanwhile, flexible rulers, quilting rulers, and drafting tools may place the hole in different locations depending on how they're intended to be stored. The presence or absence of the hole depends on how the ruler will actually be used. This tiny design feature also reflects an important principle of industrial design. Good products often solve problems so quietly that we stop noticing them. Designers constantly ask questions like, where will this be stored? How will people carry it? And what small change can make everyday life easier? The hole in a ruler is a perfect example. It costs almost nothing to add, doesn't interfere with measuring, and provides a convenient way to organize the tool throughout its lifetime. The next time you pick up a ruler, take a second look at that tiny hole near the end. It's not a decoration or a manufacturing accident. It's the product of centuries of measuring history, decades of industrial design, and countless everyday situations where people needed a better way to store a simple tool. Sometimes the smallest details tell the biggest stories, and in this case, a hole only a few millimeters wide reminds us that even the most ordinary objects around us are carefully designed with real people and real life in mind.
Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.